back with Metal Shelf and with the honor to receive the podcaster journalist Helle Stenkløv.
Thank you for having me. Hi.
Thank you so much for having us here in your metal temple.
Yeah.
But you have a podcast that's quite famous in the Norwegian scene called like Jernverket, if I pronounce correctly.
Jernverket,
yeah.
It's very difficult. I had like all the bands I've ever interviewed, they had to make a jingle for me, and I think nobody got it right. All the foreigners.
Oh.
So
good. I'm not alone on that.
No, you're very good.
So how will we start with the podcast? I know that is more than 10 years. Or is 10 years this year?
Jernverket is 10 years this year, yes. In November it will be 10 years since I started the show. First at Radio Rocks, and then later on Radio Rock. And then I went all solo and made it a podcast. Be a bit more flexible when I did the recordings and stuff. So now I do an episode every now and then when I feel like it, but in the beginning or the first 8 years I did one episode every week.
It's like a metal encyclopedia that you can just find on Spotify. And how will you start like your interest with the metal scene, like with your first vinyl? How did this start? Like, how was like the first vinyl that you bought? Or don't need to be a vinyl, because maybe back then it was like a CD or something like that.
It was definitely CDs at that time. I didn't know anyone that listened to metal really, so I had heard stuff like on MTV and on the radio, but one of the first songs I heard and really liked was one of the Finnish band Jernverket, actually. Early 2000s, you know, on a mini disc player. So I thought, I like this. So I went to a record store and I bought the Jernverket record and added it to my very, very small like Metallica and Green Day collection at that time. And from there it just escalated. I hung around in the record store and I bought CDs, and I also looked through my dad's collection. He's like more of an old times rocker with Elvis and the Shadows and stuff, but he also had some really nice Norwegian progressive rock in his shelves. So I found some gems there as well.
I ask you to find 5 albums of your collection to share with us. Starting from the 5th one, which album you could share and tell us about why this album is special from your collection?
You know, that is maybe the most difficult thing of them all, especially since I'm still a bit woo in the brain after being at home with a baby.
Yeah.
You know,
I can relate it myself.
Yeah. Well, maybe we could begin with this because it's the one closest to my arm. This is Marillion, Misplaced Childhood. I discovered the band when I went to talk with Petter, a guy that worked at Rocken, a music store or a record store in Nordre Gate in Trondheim. It doesn't exist anymore, but at the time I was there almost every week, and I was always looking for something new, and I talked a lot to him about what I liked, and I manned myself up to ask him questions, and everything was like really scary. Oh, this man knows everything, and he's like a guru. But he when he heard I liked progressive rock, he found this album. I don't remember if it was like a cheap album or whatever, but he said that the Marillion is really good, and this is it wasn't Misplaced Childhood either. I think it was Script for a Jester's Tear, and I listened to it and I was hooked. So I started buying the CDs, and then later on I bought the vinyls, and I saw them live in Trondheim on the Misplaced Childhood was it maybe the 20th anniversary, and then again 10 years later on the 30th anniversary. So this has followed me for quite some time, and I actually met the artist behind these Marillion covers as well. So I bought a print from him. It's here somewhere. So this is a very special album for me. It has this nerve. Fish's voice is like, I don't know. It's different. It's different. So this has followed me for a long time, and I always go back to the early Marillion, the like 4 first albums when I want to listen to something that makes me I don't know, feel something.
And there's also a thing that you mentioned that is nice, because many of these classical albums and like until today, actually, many bands they have like artists that create the concept, and the album cover is already telling us a history.
Yeah, you could see all their singles and all their first album covers are drawn by the same artist, and the gesture he's on a lot of them, but also this boy. It's an actual. I wonder if it was the son of the artist's son.
So what you have next here, Helle?
Yeah, I was actually looking for the first album of Soft, also called Soft, but I couldn't find it. I thought I had it in my collection, but maybe somebody has stolen it, or I have misplaced it somewhere. So I ended up with the second album of Soft called Horn.
Oh.
Yeah, horn, like in these horns, you know.
Yeah.
Early horns. This is a Norwegian, I guess you could call it a progressive rock band, or more of a fun rock band. This album is from 1971. This band was one of the bands I found in my dad's collection. He wasn't that much into progressive rock, but this album and the first one made me want to check out more of the progressive rock music, and especially the Norwegian bands. So I started collecting them, and I found out that the Norwegian prog bands albums, they are very expensive and difficult to get hold of. So luckily they've started to make new pressings of them, some of them, and also the Norske Klassikere. It's a group of people putting out classic Norwegian albums on CD, so you could get some of them there.
So did you have a Norwegian parallel?
Yeah.
Safty Horn.
Soft Horn. Especially Ove and Trygve Tue on vocals, guitar, slide guitar. They were very renowned, and they became renowned musicians. Used for a lot of studio music and also on television. Composers.
That's interesting. So Norwegian prog.
Yeah, there's a lot of good Norwegian prog bands, so I could have chosen whatever one I like. Høst, Prudence, or the old ones, Undertaker's Circus. But I think Soft was the first band I found in Dad's shelf, metal shelf.
In the metal shelf of the Papa.
Yeah.
And cool, so Soft Horn.
Yeah.
And what you have here for next, not third place, but the third album that you could share?
Yeah, let's see. Yeah, should be another Norwegian band then. That's important for me. TNT. I actually like most of their albums all the way up until My Religion. Maybe not Firefly that much, but this is the first one they made with Tony Harnell on vocals. And I love this album. I love this band. They've done a lot of weird things the last few years, and they're like really drama queens. There's always something happening in the band. But this is a very good album with so many classics on it. Like almost every song is a hit, and especially if you're Norwegian, you know this album and the hits. Like 10,000 Hours in One, that was everybody knows that. Even if you don't like metal, you know that song.
Yeah, you have been in the Trondheim Rock Pop Music Museum, the Rockheim, and they had like this installation with TNT, or that you can access TNT, like concerts alive and the music. It's super cool.
Yeah, they have a whole room like dedicated to the 80s music scene, and TNT was very big at that time. And they actually got a few hits outside Norway too. Even I think that was 10,000 Hours or Seven Seas maybe that actually made the lists in the US as well, if I don't remember it wrong.
So cool. TNT Tell No Tales.
Oh yeah.
Norwegian
Listen to this
band.
album.
Another one. Yeah. Norwegian 80s. So you got like a line time from Norwegian 70s prog rock to like to the 80s.
I should have thought this through and now gotten to some obscure Norwegian 90s black metal, and then to the thrash revival. And why didn't I think of that?
It's just spontaneous.
Yeah, it's spontaneous. This is completely spontaneous. So all these albums, I found them like when you were sitting here, but that might be a bit funny actually.
Cool. What you have now in the second?
This is a classic.
Second place. Now another great album from your collection.
Yeah, this is also an album that it could be whichever album, but look at this cover. It's
Priest.
Judas Priest is a very important band in my story of metal too. I think it might have begun with Painkiller, because that album was quite popular on a rock bar I frequented a lot in the early 2000s, and also British Steel of course, but I have all their albums, and I've been to a lot of shows, and I even interviewed Glenn Tipton and Ian Hill.
I hear on the podcast. It's a great episode.
They're difficult to interview because they've heard it all before, and you know Judas Priest, they like never go outside the box in interviews. Maybe they waited for the books to be released, I don't know, but why did I pick this one, Screaming for Vengeance? Maybe just because that today I feel like this is me screaming for vengeance.
Why not?
Yeah, so it's a classic, but I like everything Judas Priest has done. Especially up until Angel of Retribution, after Rob Halford got back. I'm not talking about the mid-90s albums. They're nothing for me, but up until Angel of Retribution, they were on fire. I like both their 70s stuff, but also the 80s stuff, and I know a lot of people would talk like turbo down, but give me that synth, ram it down too. Today is a Screaming for Vengeance day, so it became my album number 2 today.
So Judas Priest is Screaming for Vengeance, a classic from the new wave of British heavy metal here. Maybe you can share one bonus vinyl, because you have so many like gems here.
Yeah, you think about the one we were laughing at when I was
between cut out of the video.
Yeah,
you have one secret album.
But that was
from
only
Helle's
because
collection.
the cameraman was laughing so hard. This man. could be whichever record really, because he's so hot.
Oh, it's the mustache.
It is. And look at the colors. He knows how to put his shoes and shirts and vests and pants together, and he knows how to pose with an accordion. This is Roland Cedermark, a Swedish accordion artist from Härjedalen, so he's almost Trønder like me. That's Øst-Trøndelag in Sweden. He's an accordion player, and I actually love accordion music and like folk music and the popular, the older dansband music. And I don't know, I just have a thing for Roland Cedermark and his style, but also his sense of humor. And he's made his own songs. He's done a lot of covers, also of Norwegian songs, and probably it wouldn't surprise me if he's done a Black Sabbath cover song, or I don't know, because he's made so much. But I'm really happy I got to see him live before he passed. Oh. He was great. He had himself and the accordion and a cassette player. And this was in Olavshallen, a big concert hall in Trondheim. He was alone there with his damn record, or a cassette tape player. And he pushed play on the cassettes, and that was his musician, his band. Okay. It's probably cheap to rent him in to do a show when he did it that way, but just that was so old school. And he never missed. Everything was like totally planned. So he was like, yeah. That's a bonus, a stupid non-metal bonus, but all metalheads should check out Roland Cedermark.
Roland Cedermark, yeah. Dina.
Yeah, be inspired by his sense of style. Look at this ring here.
Yeah, nobody can deny that. So Helle, what do you have here for the last but not least?
I was thinking about picking something newer, like from the 2000s, but I couldn't find the album I was thinking about. So I ended up laughing by myself, and I thought that why not Stratovarius? This is their first album, Fright Night. I don't give them enough credit because they're the band that actually made me a metalhead. But it's kind of embarrassing to say that you like Stratovarius.
I was very into Stratovarius and the power metal, speed metal from Finland and from Germany as well.
Yeah, me too, especially in the early 2000s. I loved it. I went to see them live and I wrote them letters, and they actually answered.
They are virtuoso musicians.
Yeah, they are. They're really good musicians, and the songwriting, it was really good. This one is with Tolke himself on vocals. He did the two first albums. No, the three first albums. And so this is more speed metal than the other ones. If you're afraid of like Finnish power metal, you should start with the first Stratovarius albums, because they're really like shitty but cool. And look at this cover.
It's evil.
Yeah, it's very evil. So no, I'm too old to be embarrassed by liking this. I should start listening to them again. Really, Stratovarius. They're my yeah. It's their fault that I'm here today. Their fault and Europe's fault. The Swedish band, you know.
Yeah.
Final Countdown.
Yeah,
I'm guilty.
Cool. So thank you so much for sharing these 5 albums with us. But talking a little bit about your podcast, Jernverket. Like, what's the next plan?
I have a few plans. I don't want to disclose them yet because I have a few art bands or musicians I'm going to talk to later on. And I want to do more live shows when I get the time, and then there's also a 10-year anniversary this year. So I'm planning a small, if not festival, at least a show, maybe with some bands, maybe a live podcast and some DJ sets in November. So stay tuned for that.
Yeah, I hope now this will be like launched before November, and we say congrats for the show. It's awesome. And one last questions, because you have been like hosting interviews like with Glenn, guitarist from Judas Priest, Fenris, that is one of the biggest name in the black metal scene in the planet. Like, there's someone that you think like I want to interview still.
Well, it would be easy to say Kiss and Iron Maiden, but I think that it's difficult to interview them because they've heard it all before. So that might be like not a catastrophe, but maybe more boring than you'd hope for. So maybe Stratovarius.
Why not?
Yeah, I actually have never talked to them, so why not? But really, I like talking to all kinds of bands as long as I like them myself. And now I'm more into the talking with people that are older, that actually did music in the 60s and the 70s, because they are like disappearing one after one. And
Sad but true.
Sad but true, because we all get older.
Yeah.
So maybe I should start a project with tracking down more of the old Norwegian progressive rock bands and still living members, and do stuff about, yeah, I don't know. It's a very open question, because it's so many interesting people to talk to, and maybe not the bigger bands always. The smaller bands are often the most interesting bands to talk to, and also the episodes that get the most listens, because you can't find interviews with them everywhere.
It's true. So if someone that is watching us now wants to check more about your channels, where they can find it, Spotify?
Yeah, on all podcast platforms. So whatever you use, if it's Podcast Addict, iTunes, Spotify, Podplay, it's everywhere.
You're gonna put here the links also for Instagram and so on. And I want to say thank you again. It was awesome. It was an honor for us to have you here to share your knowledge.
Thank you.
That's it. Metal Shelf.